doing, everybody? My name is Robert Rivera. I'm your host here on Who's On First, the show. And we have a special guest, exciting for me. And Rick, introduce yourself to the fans. Rick Dancer.
Hi, I'm Rick Dancer, a former newscaster in Eugene, Oregon. And now I do this. I do what you do. Only out here, visual podcasting and all that kind of stuff. This is where all the people are hanging out. So you can't be on TV anymore. You kind of have to you got to follow the audience, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the reason we have Rick on the show is we have some young men over there in Eugene, Oregon, and they're trying to make their way here to Florida. And I live in Ocala, Florida. We're trying to get them here, and we're going to put a little light on this team. Rick, tell us more about this team from Oregon.
So they're the Willamette Valley Babe Ruth team, and this is the best of the best from all over the area, and they won, and they're on their way to is it the World Series? I think it's the Babe Ruth World Series in Florida, and they got to raise $5,000 each. And so I have sponsors that sponsor my shows, and I called the sponsor and said, hey, you want to pay, this is the story, these kids. And they went, oh yeah. So I got these kids and their coach on. I had 4 of them and the coach, and they're trying to raise that $50,000 so they can come out there and play. And they were you saw the interview. They were the nicest, greatest kids. I was expecting a bunch of really shy 10-year-olds. And they were kind of shy, but I wasn't expecting them to talk about things like, they said, I said, so who's the best player? And all of them before, as each one would come on, I'd go, who's the best player? And they'd all say Brody. And I think Brody probably is, but then because every one of them said Brody. And then when Brody got on, I said, who's the best player? He goes, we're all really good. That's why we're on this team. And it wasn't made up, you know what I mean? Where you hear an interview with a sports star and they're all, oh, well, the coach and everybody, we couldn't do this without everybody, but all the time it's about them, about them, about them. These kids truly were taking the I. There's no I in team, and they know that. And they said, we love hanging out with each other. We're like brothers. We're like a big family. And then I asked them all what they've learned from COVID, and they said intensely profound things like patience. We now, when we go play, we wanted to play for so long. Now it's there's no complaining about going out and playing, you know what I mean? Or having to go to practice, because they see that all those restrictions that they see now, what they have. And they were just the most appreciative kids. I'll tell you, I walked away from that interview and I'm like, okay, that was super profound, more profound than some adults that I interview, with what they were teaching me was to kind of look at the things I have and be really happy about it, because that's what they had learned. And you could just tell they had good coaches. The coach was on there, really good coaching, but he really let them talk and do most of the heavy lifting on the interview and stuff. So it was really fun. And I'll tell you what, honestly, Robert, it gave me faith in humanity. If you watch social media, I don't watch any news, but if you did, I think you can walk away feeling like, kids that are coming up are just, thinking it's all about them. And these kids were they weren't like that at all. They're that it really is about a team. And I was thinking on the way home, driving home, going, I wonder if they'll crush out the people in charge now. So all of us adults who, entitled our kids, we move up the chain, they come up, and that next generation, those 10-year-olds are going to be the kids that go back to what we used to be like, when we honored people and you honored hard work and you didn't get paid extra money for doing nothing, that kind of thing. I feel like a lot of hope in those kids.
Yeah, there's a line from the movie Field of Dreams where he says that baseball will take you back to where things were good and still can be. And it's always one of those things that have stuck in my head that I'm like, wow, we can get back to where we were before. We can get back to being human to each other and kind and getting things done and being proud to be an American,
See, and I think maybe, Robert, sports are like a key to that, and not NFL and big, all that, because I think that's just part of the conglomerate corporation, big world we live in. But if you start going back to just like, maybe that's what we're learning through all this is it's kind of like, it doesn't matter so much that you're elected to Congress. What we need is people to be elected to school boards, planning commissions, county commissioner races, city councils, those smaller areas to go back and start over and then works a new breed of people up into these offices. And maybe that's the same with sports, to get sports back to being just about sports and not about, Pepsi, Coke, or whatever else thing it is. Maybe it goes back to those kids in Little League at, Brown Elementary School.
At the purest form.
Yeah, you purify this by getting rid of all this corruption and going back to the game. What is the game of baseball? You're right. It's hot dogs. It's that crack when it hits that ball. It's
Right.
that those are the things that used to be what baseball about, but now it's about whoop-a-doo-doo-doo-doo, the next, it's like a circus when you go in there and here comes Bozo the Bear and he comes out and throws the ball and you know what I mean? It's become all about this hype and glitter rather than those boys that showed me like what baseball really is. It's about the shortstop can't do it without this guy and the catcher has to be here and every batter's got to be not going, oh, I'm better than you, but helping, going when he sees that bat, go, okay, yeah. And they're excited about that. Not who's the best player on the team. It's we're all a team. And that's, that's kind of a cool thing because maybe we're all having to learn that, but these 10-year-old boys taught me in one 30-minute interview. It kind of changed, it kind of rocked my world a little bit.
Right. It goes back to a line from another movie where it was Karate Kid, where he turns around and he tells them, because your student has become my teacher. Yeah. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these kids and they teach us stuff and how to treat people, how to treat each other, and how to treat them. And some of them, they just want to be treated like an adult. They want to be talked to like a human. You don't want to, hey, little kid, and pat them on the head. No, they're here. They're ready to play ball. They want to play ball and they want to be treated like an adult.
Yeah, I think it's good coaching. You could tell that the kids really respected this coach and the way he allowed them to. It was really an interview with them. He filled in the blanks of things that couldn't. But even when I said, so, how much you got to raise? And, this one kid, Cody, well, we have to pay for our hotel. And that's $100, $129 a night. And it's for 10 nights. And then we had that. You could tell that their parents had kind of talked to them about it. But then he added it up. And so he said, and then it was funny because when they got going, I said, you guys need 50,000 to go. But if you raise another 5, because it's 5 for each kid, I said, then I could go with you. So, and I want to go on this trip. And the kids, they all kind of looked at me and then started laughing. But then when he actually gave the figure, it wasn't 50,000. He goes, we need 55,000. And I'm going, I'm in.
So I see they're gonna have a mascot.
Yeah, that's right. So what do they get? They get a gray-haired, bearded dude who's 62-year-old mascot. I'm going to be their guy. But it was really it was charming, to see people, young men who are going to be our future leaders, and I think they could do a heck of a lot better than what's going on right now.
Yeah, when I saw the interview, I saw the passion. I saw that they had the passion. They love the game, they love the sport, and they're doing exactly what I tell people all the time. People who stop playing the game, what have you taken away? And they say, well, I learned how to win and I learned how to lose. I learned how to pick up, my coworkers, and I learned how to manage people. And it's always like, it's wow, baseball is more than just on the field, ball strike safe and out. It gives you life lessons that you take with you. At 16 years old, you'll never probably play any more baseball ever again. But hey, you know what? Now I'm a manager at a clothing store, and those lessons that I learned on the baseball field, I take them with me. I learned how to manage my family, and I learned how to do this and do that, and when to. Pete Rose is one of the best guys that ever said it. He said there's only 3 ways to treat people. Sometimes you got to kick them in the behind. Sometimes you got to leave them alone, and sometimes you got to give them a hug. The problem is knowing when to do it and what to do. Right. And that's where you got to distinguish.
Did you notice that it was kind of funny? Each one of them, I asked them, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And every one of them said, play professional baseball. And you know what that told me, Robert? It kind of told me that when was it in my life that I stopped dreaming? You know, when I was a
Right,
10-year-old boy, did I have a dream? And
right,
when did why as adults do we become sensible and we forget to dream? Now every one of those kids is not going to be a professional baseball player, but why can't they dream about that? And then as you go, you find out, like, I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. So how I go from being wanting to be a veterinarian to a news anchor, that's a pretty big leap. But
right,
I realized I wasn't medically going to be, I'm not a brainiac in the math field and chemistry. So then you slowly move. But here's the thing, by becoming my other passion, another thing that I found, then I was able to get goats and pigs and animals, and I did all my own shots and worked on all of them. I would birth goats, I'd pull goats out of the baby goats out of the mama goat. So I got to do that veterinarian thing, but not in the way that I always had thought, but I did live my dream. And how many parents would go, well, Johnny, you really need a practical career. But what if instead we allow them to dream and say, have a backup, but you go for that thing. I just think I feel like in the world right now, we just don't dream enough, and we get stuck in careers that we don't like. And good God, you get 70 to, if you're lucky, you get 70 to, 90 years on this earth, and you
right.
spend 65 of it doing something you hate. Why? Why? So you can then retire and just sit around and, and you missed your life, So
Right.
I want to live my life like a 10-year-old boy and always have a dream as a 62-year-old man to be going, what's the next thing I'm going to do? What should I dream about now? And how much can we learn from the game of baseball with those kids that every one of them wants that crack, and to hear that and that crowd scream, and they'll get their opportunities to a degree, and sometime it might change, and for some of them it's going to have to, but why not let them dream a little bit? And why don't we dream more? What are we afraid
Right.
of? That our dreams aren't going
Absolutely.
to come true.
It's one of those things I tell my kids. I'm like, hey man, you know what? You guys are 15 and 16, and this life is going to give you some things, and take advantage of everything that you can. And you know what? At 17, 18 years old, if you don't know what you want to do and you want to do something crazy, then go ahead and go for it. This is the time to do it. Go crazy. Go tour Europe for a year and go start a rock band, and go do something that you would 30, 40 years, when you're 40 years old, you can go, wow, you know what? I remember that one year I did this and this and this, and I've been on adventures. I went to Australia for a year. Do something crazy, do something that you sit there and you look back and you go, wow, I really did do that. And that was a great, great time, and that's part of this right here. These kids go into this World Series, and we're going to get them there, folks. We're going to get them there. We're going to get some information from Rick, and getting them to the World Series. Could be possibly the only baseball they ever play. And this is going to be a great experience for them. This is going to expand their minds. It's going to expand their lives in baseball. And maybe one day, 40 years from now, you never know. One of these kids might be a GM for a baseball club. They may even own a baseball club, or they just be a dad at a little league field going, hey, teaching their 8, 9, 10-year-old how to play the game.
So let me ask you, Robert, something.
Yeah.
When you were talking about that with your kids, you
Right.
got a little bit emotional. What was
Yeah.
that? What was that?
Well, I mean, it's things that, like, I never had the opportunity to do. My dad was a hardworking guy. We basically we weren't wanting, but we needed here and there, and we always got by. We always got by. He always made it happen for us, and it was never, hey, here, I can give you $1,200 and you can go tour Europe, or it's always like, hey, listen, if you want it, I'll try to help you, but I really can't, because we got bills in this house. We got real bills in here. So it was one of those type of deals. And I'm not financially rich by any sense of the word, but I mean, I can and I will. If my kids have a desire to do something, I would definitely be more than glad to help them out and figure out a way for them to do something crazy. My son's been playing guitar for a year and a half and has went from purple water, playing purple water, the little do do do, to rocking, like, from one day to the next with 4 lessons. My daughter went from just drawing little sketches to doing beautiful art that I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, this girl has some real talent. And then I go and I show it to my friends and they go, who did that? And I said, my daughter. And they go, oh, wow, that's amazing, you know? And we took them to France and we went to France. They got to see the world. They've been all over. We went to Key West. They've been to Oregon. They've been to Maine, Washington, D.C. We've been all over. And it's one of those deals where I want them to see the world. I want them to see more than what's just in front of them. I want them to see what's out there, you know? And in this world, if they don't get to see that, you know, it's a shame. If they don't, I get kids in school that you turn around and go, you ever been out of Florida? Then, no, never. You know, 16 years old, never been out of Florida? It's shocking to me.
So is this podcast your dream?
I wouldn't say it was a dream, but it's a heck of a thought. I love baseball, and I always wanted to talk about baseball. I've been playing baseball since I was a little kid, and now here I am, 50 years old, and I always wanted to stay close to the game. So I also went to pro umpire school. I went to Harry Wendelstat's in Daytona, Florida. I spent 5 weeks there. I tried to become a major league umpire, and at the time, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I had a really good job, and what they were offering was $1,300 to $1,500 a month, and all the hot dogs I can eat. And I had to be on the road 28 days out of 30. And I had just been married, a 1-year-old kid. That wasn't going to be for me, you know. But I can say I went and I tried it, and I went after it. And one day, I've been talking about this 4 or 5 years to do this. And one day I just turned around and I told my son, I'm just gonna hit record and let's just run with it. And you know, 2 or 3 days later, I'm like, you know, let's go get a camera. And a week later, let's go get a light. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And let's shed a little light on the game. And like I said, it's not ball strikes and safe and out for me. That's not what this game is about. This game is a life lesson. It teaches you stuff every day. Every time I go to a baseball game, every day, every time I take my kids to a baseball game, I said, I see something every day in a baseball game that I've never seen before. The last time we went, my son goes, Dad, how was the game? This is good. He goes, oh, okay, so you didn't see anything you've never seen before? I said, actually, I did. And he goes, what? I said, if you add up all those numbers, the runs, the errors, the hits, if you add all those numbers, they both of them, both lines add to 15. And he just looked at me and he started adding. And he goes, holy smoke. I said, I've never seen that before. Both rows add up to the number 15. It's amazing. And he just looks at me and goes, whoa, never thought about that.
Do you think baseball has more analogies than some other things? You know what I mean? Because it's so American, it's so us, our culture. And whereas, I mean, football is too, and I think there's things with football, but I don't know what, you know, and I'm not like the biggest baseball fan in the whole world, but there's something about it that seems more, it's just us, it's our country. I think it's you know what I mean? You know more than I do.
Absolutely.
More so than other sports. I don't get that from tennis
Right.
or bowling, you know?
It's funny because we were in Paris. And I saw this young man walk by me and he was wearing a Yankee hat. And I told my wife, I said, wow, look, he's wearing a Yankee hat. And I said, well, about that afternoon, I see another young man and he was wearing a Boston Red Sox hat. And I'm like, wow, look, Boston Red Sox. And I told my wife, I'm going to tally up baseball hats in Paris, France. I was like, where soccer is king. Or football. Turns out that the Yankees were the number one. They had 37 hats. We had about 11 Boston Red Sox hats. There was a couple of Texas Rangers, Philadelphia Phillies, Pittsburgh Pirates. And it's just amazing to me that in Europe, that the football, soccer country that it is, that baseball is reaching them out there. And
maybe that's because there's so many life lessons in it, you know, and like what we found with these kids in Eugene playing this game is this is more than a game. It's like a lifestyle. And it's, you can tell from talking to these kids that And don't you think that's really how sports should be? It should be a metaphor for life. And I think baseball still does that. I think a lot of sports have gotten so over the top that you'd be hard pressed to find lessons other than don't be this.
Right, right,
Don't
right,
be
right.
that.
It's
But
it
there's still something structural about baseball for these kids that I talked with anyway, and what you were talking about earlier in what we were talking about in the program.
right.
That there's just a lot of lessons, and maybe that's why it endures so much, and because of those life lessons.
Right. It's the great movie Field of Dreams when he says the world steamrolls by and the one always standing there is baseball. And it's the one true thing and the only one good thing that was then and could be today. It's still baseball. And it's one of those deals. And remember, folks, I'll be covering that game in Iowa. I'm heading out to Iowa in August. We'll be doing that. We'll be taking the Who's on First show out to Iowa. But let's get back to these kids. And what are we looking to do for these kids, Rick?
So this is the all-star team coming from Oregon. These are all 10-year-olds. So Willamette Valley Babe Ruth. So that's basically a bunch of kids from Eugene, Springfield, up and through the valley, Salem, that kind of thing. And they've won this trip. They're going, and I gave you the YouTube. You can put that on the link for people. There's a GoFundMe account that people can go to.
Okay,
and
what's that GoFund again?
It's I have that. I sent you the email. If you throw that up for your viewers in the lead or something, then they can just link on it and go to it, because that's the best way to get it. Otherwise, you can look up Willamette Valley Babe Ruth, and they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. You can find their pages and stuff. But they're trying to get $5,000 per kid, so it's like $50,000. And they're going to be there for 10 days.
55. Remember, you're the mascot. You're going.
Yeah. Well, if we get that other 5,000, then I can go with them. I can't go with them. I'm too busy, but I would love to. But they're really looking forward to it. They're all really excited. Guess what the first thing they want to do in Florida?
What's that?
Your beach.
They want to go to the beach.
Because I have to tell you guys, in Oregon, you don't just walk out in the water like you do in Florida. In Oregon, you put on a wetsuit and you put on wet feet, little things on your face, because otherwise you freeze to death. It's very cool.
I've been to the Oregon coast, and I've had the pleasure of dipping myself or baptizing myself in that water. And let me tell you, woof. Now I know where that cold water comes from. Alaska. It comes right down Washington into Oregon.
And it takes a while to get to Florida, so you guys get it warm by the time it gets there.
Absolutely. So like I was telling Rick, folks, let's make this happen. This is a dream for these kids. You always want to take care of the kids. I was lucky enough to go to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And Williamsport, Pennsylvania, they have this huge pin trading section, and you can't buy a pin over there. You can only trade it. Okay. And I had spoken to a gentleman out there, and I said, boy, my kids would really love to get into this. And he says, you know what? Your kids they don't have any pins. And I said, no. He goes, well, I'm going to give them their first one. And he gave them this beautiful pin here. And this is from a gentleman, Fred Strauss. And it says, man stands tallest when stooping to help a child.
Wow.
Okay. And it was always about the kids. The story behind this young man was about 40-something years old, and him and his dad had been going to Williamsport for years and years, 20, 30 years straight. This year, the 2013 was the year his dad had passed. And this is the year that he never made it to Williamsport. But he took his dad with him with this pin. And just like any child, you never want to leave anybody behind. So his dad took the kid, and now he's giving back to the kids. And that's what we need to do, folks. We need to get in contact with this team. And we're in Florida. We need to show them some Southern hospitality, okay, and get them down here.
Because they'll never forget it. I mean, it's one of those things that this will be a memory that they'll, and you hope that kids, when they, like I think all of us, when we have hard times, you look back at those moments when people invested in you, and you never know what that does for a child, and you and I both, all of us could sit back and remember when something special happened like that. And those are big moments, and these guys deserve, they
absolutely never want to disappoint a kid. Because remember, one of those days, that little 15-year-old kid, that little 12-year-old kid, one day is going to be a doctor, going to be a policeman. And he pulls you over and he's going to go, hey, I remember you, coach. Hey, I remember you. You're the guy that bought me a bike, or I remember you saw me in the store and you got me a popsicle or something. You know, you gave me that moment of inspiration. And we never know what these kids are going to grow up to be. They could be president. They could be anything they want in this world. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give them that trip. We're trying to give them that dream. So folks, let's reach out to them. Let's get them here to Florida, give them some of that Southern hospitality, and let's let them hit that beach, those beautiful beaches that we love to go to. What do you say, Rick?
Thanks for doing this for us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Rick, I know you're not a baseball guy, but I do have a curveball question for you. Would you rather be a pitcher that strikes out the batter or to win the game, or would you rather be the hitter that hits the home run and win the game?
I'd rather be the hitter. I think I would be a terrible pitcher. So I guess what I should do is say I want to be the pitcher, because if I get to dream, that would be the ultimate, because I would be a terrible pitcher. So if I just had that one moment and it went, you know, that could be it. But I think the crack of the bat would be really fun, and to see that going up. But you know what I'd probably do? I'd probably stand there and be watching going, holy crap, look at that thing. I hit that, and then it'd be too late, you know?
Absolutely. I'm with you. I'm the hitter type of guy. I don't want to be a pitcher. I was always a catcher. I never really liked pitchers. I had to handle them. That was enough for me. But I was always I want to hit the home run and jog around the bases and just point to the stands and take in the moment, you know, and have a good time with it. Usually pitchers that they make their little strikeout and they get a high five from the catcher and a little high five here, and everybody walks around. Hey, good job. The batter, it's a whole different monster when you get home.
You're bringing everybody else in too, hopefully, huh?
Absolutely. Well, Rick, thank you for being on my show. I really appreciate it. Folks, thank you for press and play, and make sure you hit subscribe, hit thank you. We'll be putting up some links there for Rick Dancer and for the Eugene, Oregon kids. Let's get them down here. Let's get them some Southern hospitality. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
See you later.
If you like the show, please do me a favor. Subscribe. Right. You see it? It's right there. Subscribe, share, like, and don't forget, put that bell on. That'll ding you when I put something else on, all right?
Now, who's up first? Right. Okay. Now,